What is up, everybody? How are you all doing out there? I hope this video is finding you well. Today we are just going to be talking about this book right here, so let's just get right on in. Before we get started, for those of you who do not know, my name is Andrew J. Stillman, and I am knee-deep in a novel writing course of sorts here on this channel. You may have noticed a character development video, a plot development video, videos about genres and ideas and all of that. And if you watch any of those, or if you watch my reading vlog over on my personal channel, you will know why I have picked this book and how it came about. But a long story short, just in case you're here randomly specifically to see what I have to say about this book, I'm writing a book on my YouTube channel for National Novel Writing Month in November 2020. This book had some influence on it. Apart from that, if you're interested in how and why, you can go find all those videos. There's plenty about that by now. But yeah, we're just gonna talk about this today. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit that little subscribe button down in that description box, followed by that notification bell so you can be informed anytime I upload any videos, whether they be book reviews or novel development tutorials or any other writing advice, tips, anything I've got in between. Especially in the coming months, there's gonna be a lot going on this channel. So subscribe, join me, I cannot wait to have you. Anywho, Monster Whisperer. So this was a fun and light-hearted read, but it really would have done better, I think, if the book itself had seen some more development. I can understand that this author pumps books out very frequently and very often. It kind of adds to the appeal of this book because it is still a pretty well thought out story, considering the fact that the author pumps them out so quickly. I am just going to refer to her as JB from now on because Trepagnier. That's gonna be my one guess that I give at her last name, but JB from here on out. Anyway, so the main character of this book, River, can obviously talk to monsters, which is kind of clear there by the title. So she's basically captured and brought to hell so that she can talk to these monsters. So Black Widow, a kraken, a minotaur, and a phoenix. Because they're trapped in their little monster form and they have these collars on that keep them stuck in their monster because they're monster and human. And they're basically pitted against each other in this gladiator-type arena. And then that whole thing is run and orchestrated by like the Greek gods. And while we're on the topic of those Greek gods and goddesses, there's actually a grammar tip that I would like to discuss. Honestly, this is something that ended up taking a full star rating off of this book for me. And this is gonna be a little bit of a grammar rant, but I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go for it anyway. So this is about the capitalization of gods and goddesses as a title versus as like a descriptor. I just feel like it's necessary for self-published authors to educate themselves in the same way that a traditionally published author might, because self-publishing has enough of a bad rep as it is, and when authors make mistakes like this, I just have to call it out. So if you're saying like the Greek gods and goddesses, the gods and goddesses is not capitalized. But if you're using God for like a name, like God as in God, or if you think of like Thor, the god of thunder, then God of thunder is his name. And this author just completely switches it. So every time, oh, this Greek god and goddess, and it's all capitalized, and then if she's ever saying like, oh my god, then she lowercases that, it just bothers me. Little grammatical things like that stick out to me, they stick out to other people, and again, with self-publishing already kind of having a little bit of a stigma, stuff like this really bothers me. So sorry, but I just had to call it out. It's not a religious thing, it's just a grammatical thing. Same as how in The Queen's Executioner I was talking about the differences between the British spelling and the American spellings. I'm just putting it out there for the tip. On to some good stuff. The establishment of the different characters and their roles based on actual mythology is my favorite thing in this book. It's actually something that's led me to find out and develop a lot more about this book that I was writing that I'm doing for this channel. You can see more about that specifically in the plot development video, but needless to say, I was really inspired by the mythology in this book. I also just really liked the characters themselves, and anytime it switched over into a new point of view, the character who took over was clearly defined and understandable, and everyone who took hold of this story had some sort of distinct voice that differentiated them from everybody else. The plot itself was also something that I really enjoyed, and I loved the snarkiness and the quirk of our main character, River. However, I know I just said it, but I really think that this book just suffers from some underdevelopment. It's just difficult because, like I said, everything is really well thought out. It's just that it's like 80% dialogue. It just reads very much like, hey, let's go do this, let's go do that, and oh hey, can you just tell me this? And then there's like 15 like paragraphs of just text and quotes of like just explaining what is happening. There's also a really big lack of character tags, and with all of them just talking so much in amongst each other, and the fact that the monster text is italicized, it just made it a little bit harder sometimes to differentiate who was who. Something else that I had written in my personal chapter by chapter notes is that I actually have a little challenge for myself that I would like to write some sort of story or book or whatever using only dialogue, and this book has just kind of given me a look into what that might look like, except for with dialogue, just the same as anything else, you run just as much of a risk of telling the entire story, and there are ways to show the story through dialogue just much better than what was done in here. I guess I just think that the prose in here could have just been a little bit more developed or more poetic. Even though it moved quickly and I liked that, I do wish in some areas it just slowed down a little bit. It's hard to say that though, because I mean, half of the reason that I picked this up in the first place was because it's short, and if it had received the development that I kind of think it deserves, I can't really guarantee that I would have picked it up if it was longer. But then again, Piranesi was a short book, and I didn't even know that that was a short book until after I had bought it, because I just bought it since I liked the description, so you never know. But that was a short book that certainly knew how to pack a punch, and certainly saw the type of development that this book might have really benefited from. This again kind of takes me back to a little bit of some pros and cons I have briefly discussed on this channel about self-publishing and the argument for and against it. Because essentially, if self-published authors want to make writing their career and make enough money off of that career to have that as their living without having to do anything else, then statistically they have to pump books out quick, because each book release is essentially just a bonus check. Sales tend to decrease very quickly after the book is released, because after that it just gets lost in the sea of the billions of other books that are out there. The flip side of that though is that if more time and effort is put into the actual text, it's more likely that it will sell long past the release date. But then that issue just comes down to, where is the money gonna come from in the meantime? Seriously, that's the worst. We are not gonna get too much into that tangent today. I've already said too much about it here as it is, but I just think that that pertains to this particular book because I really feel for this author. I've said it, you know, in the reading vlog that I had about this book, and it's also the reason that I personally tried to kind of steer clear from the self-publishing industry after I made what I considered to be a publishing mistake. I just spend so much time trying to perfect everything that I write that I'm producing things more like Piranesi over things like this that are just pumped right out. And that author for Piranesi has basically gone like 15 years in between publications, so you do the math. I don't know if I'm gonna carry on with this series or read any other books by this author. I'm conflicted. I did like this book, and I did specifically choose it because it was short and succinct and quick, and it certainly delivered everything in that regard that I had expected and wanted out of it. I just wish wish that there was either less dialogue or just that the dialogue that's in here is less info dumpy. If I do ever carry on with books by this author, whether this series or otherwise, I highly doubt that I'm going to take the time to keep the chapter by chapter summary as well as do any kind of review on this, because it takes a lot of extra time to do that, and it was definitely only worth it for this once. So be sure to check out my reading vlogs, whether I continue them on this channel or my personal one, because I still haven't figured that out. But this one is particularly discussed in reading vlogs over on my channel, but any future readings will be just discussed over there. I am about to move into some spoilers, so if you haven't clicked the timestamp just to get here already as it is, or if this is your time to bounce, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, followed by the little bell notification before you go, and leave me a comment about what you think of this book, or if you want to read it, or if this review has helped or hindered your opinion of this book. Let me know down in the comments, and come back after you've read it so that you can continue on with this discussion with me. Or feel free to leave any comments that you have about self-publishing and traditional publishing and all of that. Topics we'll be talking about more on this channel later on. It's topics that I do not have the time or the energy to get into today. Spoilers coming in 3, 2... Okay, so everybody loves River. Like, everybody in this text really, really loves River. It's all River, River, River. She's so beautiful. She's so sexy. She's so whatever. It was cute at first, but by the end of the book, it was kind of annoying. Plus, a lot of the characteristics in this book are simply physical, and a lot of what the characters in here think about is also strictly physical. I think that it would have been fine if it was simply just Kaiman the Minotaur and Pavlina the Black Widow who wanted her, but I think with everybody trying to get all up in River's pants, it was just a little bit too much by the end. Especially Deimos, the Phoenix, because he was the most silent about his feelings for River, and he cares about her just differently. And I feel like that should have been utilized more to develop a friendship aspect to the whole thing, because everyone else is just like hyper sexualized and just trying to get into her pants. I get that, you know, at heart they're all human and they're all caged and whatever, and then there's this beautiful human girl that just comes in and their sexual appetites are getting wet as well. Whatever. Cute at first, by the end, not so much. Especially when I think that it was River and Kaiman the whole time that should have been ended up together, which they might in the future books, I don't know. But I think it would have been more interesting if there was just kind of like a triangle built around River, Pavlina, and Kaiman, with Pavlina then kind of, you know, wishing that she could convert River over and give her the love of the woman once she's out of this Black Widow form. But even with all of that said, I was still kind of upset with what happened with River and Kaiman, because the whole time I really liked how they were getting on with each other while he was in his monster form, because it was very like Beauty and the Beast-esque. But then as soon as she gets his collar off, it's all about his muscles and his chisels and how good he looks and this and that. And then all of that kind of stuff, it just feels like, is this really important? There's also a big debate on the use of physical descriptions with characteristics in books as it is. Because in times like what I'm specifically referring to right now, it can come across as a little vain and shallow, especially with River here and having so many people who are trying to get into her pants or whatever. It really just seemed like she was just waiting to see who was the cutest instead of like actually having that development, like I said, like what she had with Kaiman when he was in his beast form. She just had like the pick of the litter and just wanted the hottest human, and I didn't like that. And especially, you know, again with Kaiman, I mean, I think that he did have some genuine feelings for her, and I would have liked to see that developed a little bit more. Or again, like at least with Deimos, and I mean, he wasn't as like, I had mixed feelings about Rivers when I just opened up to, so even that, it's like it didn't have to be, you know, everyone's getting attached. While we're on the topic of Deimos, let's talk about River's little power here for just a minute. I'll be honest, I mean, if you ever do read my little chapter by chapter notes, you'll see that I accidentally read the last page before I read the book because I was just trying to check the publication or the print date on the back, and then it was just right here. But, you know, even though I didn't read the full extent of the last page, I mean, this whole River's little secret thing was just, I mean, kind of obvious the whole time that she had some demon in her. But the thing is that, I mean, it was pretty obvious from the start, and for a book that wasn't that long in the first place, that was really just kind of the only storyline that I just felt was a little drawn out. Especially with everyone's kind of like over dramatic reaction to her whole fire summoning power thing. I just felt like it was something that developed so rapidly and then was just like, she's got a secret for the rest of it. And then it was just kind of like, well, duh. Like, of course she's got a secret power. She's the only person who can communicate with both animals and monsters, and she can create a green fire. I mean, that whole fire thing and her powers and everything like that is obviously, hopefully, probably something that we'll see in the future development of these books. But the whole mystery around who her father was, although well played by the end, just felt like it was dragging on a little bit throughout the text. And again, since this text wasn't that long in the first place, it's just a little bit of a letdown. That being said, however, even though my eyes did glance across the whole I'm half demon thing, what I did not see during that was that her father is Barbados, the Duke of Hell, and that she is part of demon royalty. So I do think that that gave it a little bit of a good element there at the end that acted as something that I would probably want to see develop in the future books if I ever do continue to read them. It's just like I said, I don't know if I can be bothered to do that, and if I do, I'm certainly not spending the money on the hard copies of this because the format of the book is pretty average as well. Sorry, it's just the truth. I don't like how the interior of the book is designed, and so I wouldn't buy another hard copy. But A+ on the cover. In the end, those of you looking for something that you don't really have to connect to and can probably finish in the duration of a short flight, this book is well worth the read. It's just a pretty average read. Like, the length of my review plus my little chapter by chapter reaction notes is probably the same length as like 6 or 7 chapters out of the 40 chapters that take up 200 pages. But if you have read this book, or if this review has helped or hindered your opinion of it, please let me know down in the comments. Again, this particular book was one of 5 chosen for a project that I'm doing for this channel and the book that I'm writing for National Novel Writing Month, November 2020. Be sure to check out all those tutorial and topic videos in the novel writing playlist on this channel so you can see how this fits into all of that. Normally, this wouldn't have been a book I would have chosen if it weren't for this project, but I am grateful for giving me the idea to look into mythology more. Although for mine is more Hindu mythology than the Greek one as seen in here. But you can check out all of that in all of those other videos. While you're down there in that comment box leaving me some comments and pressing some upvotes on this video, you may as well also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, followed by that little bell notification so you can be updated for all of these tutorials and everything else that I've got planned for the future. And it's a lot, I promise. I'm gonna be around forever. Even though I'm recording these videos all over the place and I might just look different just based on how they are released, the next video in sequence is going to be about connecting with your inner voice on Tuesday, so make sure you come back for that if you don't hit that little notification bell to remind you. See you in a few days.